Hello and welcome to episode 140 of Killer POV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G. from Blumhouse.com. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go through the whole resume.
Oh, Jesus.
For a reason.
Wow.
The creator icons
Jesus.
of Fright, FearNet, Fangoria. Been there. Done that. Elric Kane. Where you been, Elric Kane?
A little This Week in Horror.
Right.
Followed by Inside Horror. Followed by Failed Business Jump Cut Cafe. Followed by God Knows What's Next.
That's not a failed business. It was a beautiful business.
That was an amazing...
It's a failure like Carpenter's The Thing. A beautiful, spectacular failure.
10 years from now, it's going to be legendary.
That's all I have.
I told you. It's like CBGB. Somebody's going to make a documentary on it. Kids are going to stand outside of where it used to be and smoke cigarettes and go, I heard John Carpenter used to hang out here.
Someone in this room is going to make a documentary.
I want it to be like Carpenter's The Thing, not Carpenter's Ghost of Mars. Cult like that.
Okay,
I don't want a cult like Ghost of Mars.
You don't like Ghost of Mars?
Oh, I still don't like Ghost of Mars. I've tried twice.
No, this is all
totally my guilty pleasure.
Come on, all positive here. All positive. Also, Rebekah McKendry.
What up? From New York Horror Film Festival, and then I went to Fangoria, and then I taught for a while, and then I went to Blumhouse.com. Also wrote for Shock Till You Drop, wrote for FearNet for a while, run Dead Right Horror Trivia, and this.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we're going through our resumes because this episode is
we need
titled,
a job?
Because we need a job.
We don't need a job. We're okay.
No, we're all
good.
Okay.
We're good.
This episode is titled, thanks to Elric Kane, Killer POV Goes to Hell.
Yep.
That's right.
Because our last was, which one?
The final
chapter.
Final chapter.
And you never know which one of these is really the end, quite frankly. But
This is the
end. This is the end, for sure.
My
yes.
only friend.
We are wrapping our time up here at Geeknation, and as Killer POV, the three of us collectively as Killer POV, we had an amazing time doing it. 3 years now of our lives, 140 episodes, including this one.
You know, it's hilarious. I just realized we haven't thanked or even said anything about we just won a Rondo Award.
We just won a
We
Rondo Award.
We weren't on air when we won.
We were so convinced we weren't going to win.
Yeah,
oh my God.
So I know there's a few of you out there who probably really hustled for us that will never know what you did.
And
Thank you.
we love you guys so much.
Really cool.
Thank you so much.
Never would have happened without you guys directly.
You have
really
no
pushing.
understanding how shocked we were. Elric calls me that night and he goes, Becca, we really got to talk. It's going to be really
right.
bad.
It's going to be bad news.
And he like really started pepping me for like badness. And I didn't even know that the Rondo like had been announced.
Neither
and then
did I
he was
until a
like,
second before.
we're going to have to change to Rondo Award winning. And I was like, what? It was like, I was so not expecting it.
It's
it was
very
great.
cool.
Yeah.
So
it is. But,
and it's always, going out on top of anything you do. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It is. So we're here to pay final tribute to what we've done together for the last couple of years with Geeknation. Couldn't have done it without them, especially Brian Keathley, who is the co-owner of the company with his wife, Clare. They've been really good to us the last couple of years. Same with Oren. And of course, we've had a lot of people sitting behind the turntable, so to speak, to record us. It started out our friend Justin Cruz, who we knew for a long time, and then a gentleman named Parker. And then most recently, we have to thank Ryan Plume, who
Ryan is awesome.
did a great job and really was patient with our drunkenness. And
he just laughed. He would go along with it.
I think he shook in disapproval a lot his head. The antics that happened.
He's always smiling, though. So
he always smiles.
So I think he had a good time.
140 episodes, that's 3 years of our life. That's a long time.
And it's worth noting that we really did not know each other. I mean, I knew Becca sort of.
We knew each other in passing. Like, Rob and I think we met in a line at Cinefamily.
Yeah. Oh, no, in front of the New Bev one night.
Yeah, we met in a line at the New Bev.
We were waiting for a midnight screening.
Yeah.
Elric I had not met until our first meeting about possibly doing the show.
Yeah, it's hard to believe we were never even in person the same place.
Yeah,
I'd never even physically seen you, in my opinion.
I think I met Elric at a party at Matt Curry Holmes' house.
Oh, we knew each other well.
Yeah, we knew each other
We'd already
a while.
done Inside Horror,
but like we'd first met. It wasn't even that long before it, but we met at a party at Matt Curry Holmes'
wasn't
house.
Possession?
90 shit. No, I knew you before
That was
Possession.
early, though.
That's like when we got to know each other.
Oh, no, we met at Devil's Carnival.
You are right.
Oh.
And your husband, I can't remember his name, the guy you live with, he's looking into my eyes at this very moment. Yeah, we met at Devil's Carnival when Darren Bowsman wasn't watching the monitor. He was just watching us.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We cruised the whole
That was
set
my favorite
together.
moment
yeah.
ever.
While he was directing, he wasn't looking at the monitor. He was like, so what's up, guys? We're
That's
like, there's
hilarious.
a scene
But I think
going
the
on,
underlining of this is what's interesting is you never know if something's going to work or not.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so
Chemistry is not something you could just...
No, and this comes, it kind of starts with, in terms of suggestion of how to get three of us together with Andrew Cash to Brian.
Right.
And so Brian's, brainchild of starting a horror podcast with three hosts passes on to Andrew, who comes up with the three of us. Then Brian meets us, and this becomes a show.
Yeah.
It could have been it could have been a 2-episode run. I look back, I haven't heard them, but I remember our first couple. Not clunky, but I'm sure they are.
We were getting used to each other, but I mean, pretty early on, we kind of got into the groove. And I do remember, I remember the first meeting we had at Geeknation, and we were just chit-chatting, and again, I had not known Elric, and Brian had said, God, I wish I had the mics going now, because it's already happening. So, we're really, really thankful and grateful to Geeknation and everybody there that's helped us put this show together. This isn't farewell forever.
Nope.
It's just, we are at a point where we have other things in our lives we want to do. And Beck and I obviously work for Blumhouse.com now, and it takes up a lot of our time. Our lives are in just a different place now, and we're always going to try to stay together in some capacity. But today is all about celebrating what we've done so far with Geeknation as Killer POV. The three of us is that entity. So
the ultimate garage band podcast. That's our view. This is our the days where you're.
It feels kind of like we're a band when we were just at Monsterpalooza this past weekend in Pasadena
and walking around together.
And which is a rarity. Although apparently Elric wears the same badass cinema shirt
in every picture.
The only shirt I have.
So everyone's like, "Oh man, he's wearing the same shirt."
I've had that since I swear when Alamo Drafthouse, early days where that place started.
Yeah.
I visited from New Zealand, bought that shirt, and I've had it ever since.
Wow.
And I wish they kept making them because they glow in the dark. They're cool.
Wow.
So
you were looking for glow in the dark T-shirts at the convention. I was like, Elric, how often are you in the dark? But you're like, oh man, it's a good thing my shirt glows.
Girls love it, man. Girls love
it.
Guys wearing glow in the dark T-shirts. That's how you do it.
I have a really good Universal Monster shirt that I didn't realize glue in the dark until I fell asleep in it that night, and I was
glue
like, "Oh,
in the
look at
dark?
that. That's so cool."
Yeah. See.
So we're gonna at some point go through down memory lane and kind of cite some of our favorite episodes, some of the highlights of the show. But for starters, let's do what we always do, which is talk about what we've seen.
Yeah.
We've all collectively seen Holidays now, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
The anthology.
Our anthology, yeah.
And I guess I'll kick it off. I really liked it a lot. It's again with anthologies, it's always going to be a mixed bag depending what your personal tastes on. What I like about this one is I liked more of it than average. There's only one that I really wasn't comfortable with, and that's Kevin Smith's segment. I have no problem.
I don't know what the hell that
was. The only one that doesn't fit.
You guys are crazy. That's the greatest segment of the whole.
Oh, get out of here.
You were bullshitting.
No, I mean, I gotta say, I think I was 5 in. I was watching with Dick Renner. I think we were 5 in, and we looked at each other and we're like, these are really good. These are really interesting. The production value's high.
Yeah.
And I really was enjoying it. And then Chris, and I kind of had a guess that Kevin Smith wouldn't be as good. But he had Halloween, one of the great seasons.
Which I assume that the other filmmakers would have fought over. I would have fought over that one.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to do
The weird thing about that film is not just that it's the worst film of his career, and it is. It's the worst thing he's made. I'm not even close in my opinion. It's the worst thing Kevin Smith did.
Correct.
My feeling,
I would agree.
While watching
I like him. I'm a fan of him.
Yeah. No, look, I love Clerks. I love Mallrats. My feeling watching it was that the aesthetic of it was so poor in comparison to the other films that I couldn't help but wonder if this is the thing that helped get the whole thing greenlit. As if he made a short,
totally,
and then they wrapped other films around it with budgets. And I almost wish they could have reshot his. But even if it had been shot beautifully, it still wouldn't have been my kind of story. It's the kind of horror, or even horror in quote marks, that actually turns me off the genre sometimes.
Yeah,
it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
The other thing that killed me is the other ones, all the other segments, whether I liked them or not, because it was, it's an anthology. Some of them were I love this one. I'm not so into this one. But all of them, regardless, were infused with the holiday. It was the point of the segment. His was somebody slung some candy at the beginning and was oh, it's fucking Halloween.
Really have to do with
Halloween,
then
that's it. And it was a completely different thing.
And some chose original, feeling of a holiday that you'd never thought about, and that's what I liked about it. Instead of just going, oh, I'm just going to do St. Patrick's Day is going to be about drinking. St. Patrick's Day was so original.
It was so
and
Wicker Man.
strange. Yeah.
I loved that
I loved it. I loved the directing style of a guy who I never would have looked for.
Yeah.
His name's Gary Shore. He did Dracula Untold.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is the big epic, and that trailer for Dracula Untold, the biggest turnoff to me ever. I never would have watched that movie.
The movie didn't do well.
But then his short is so the opposite of that. It looks like a very stylistic, kind of a little more grabbersy, but really fun movie.
Danny fucking Zuko.
I really loved it. And Anthony Scott Burns is the one that we finished it and we wound it and watched it again.
Is that the Father's Day?
Father's Day.
That's my favorite segment.
It's one of my favorite segments in any anthology recently because it hooks you so well. Jocelyn Donahue gives one of her best performances. I'd say top 2 things I've seen her do.
Yeah.
It's very minimal and it's just got this voice leading the whole film, which ends up being the voice
Michael Gross,
for Tremors.
right?
Yeah.
For Tremors and Family
But
Ties.
it's cool that you're not aware of it while you watch it. But I don't want to ruin this one for everyone because I think it's a really mysterious, haunting little piece.
God, I want the backstory on that one.
Yeah,
that's
more.
the one that I really want to know more because it keeps.
Yeah, you do.
And you don't even notice it. At least I didn't while watching it the first time. I didn't notice it, but when I watched it the second time at home, because we watched it here at the Blumhouse office, and then I was like, I really want to see this again, and I rented it off Amazon. When I watched it the second time, I noticed that every couple minutes throughout the whole thing, it cuts to scenes of planets aligning.
Yeah, something cosmic is going on.
You don't even realize it when I watched it the first time, but you probably see it 4 times throughout the 10-minute segment. These just big, giant planets.
I was
moving
assuming
into
it's some sort of eclipse, some sort of lunar eclipse that was gonna let this thing be free that one time of every few years, every 40 years or whatever. It gets that one moment or whatever. Because that's when he went to it. When he was younger. This is. I wish you could have met him then. And the weird. Right. Well, I don't want to give too much away once it happens because
why don't we?
Even though it's mysterious, but also let's throw out to Valentine's Day because stylistically,
Valentine's Day was amazing.
That's a stunning movie.
Everyone's 2 favorites because that'll get mine with the Valentine's Day one, which is the Starry Eyes guys, Dennis and Kevin Kolsch did a great job with that one, and I love Father's Day. Those are my 2 favorites. What about you guys?
I think I have my 3 are tied, like between St. Patrick's, Valentine's, and Father's Day. Like I like all 3 for such different reasons.
Yeah.
And everything else, there's some other good ones in there. That like the last one is I like the way Adam Egypt Mortimer put it together.
Okay. It's Kevin and Dennis
wrote that one.
Yeah. It had a good energy to it. I thought it was gonna, even though you kind of know where it's going, it's put together in a really fun way. I really like that. Actually, probably my other favorite performance of the film was the guy in that one. I've forgotten his name. Actually, I think his name's A. Bowen as well. It's like not AJ Bowen, but it's A. Bowen. I've just forgotten, but he's on Twitter. But I really like his performance as this kind of like loser guy on Tinder. You think he's a serial killer type, and it was a fun piece.
Yeah,
but can we talk about Kevin Smith again?
No. Valentine's Day was definitely my favorite. I also really liked St. Patrick's Day. That was the other one, just because I love Wicker Man so much, and it was the first film I've seen in a really long time that just really embraced that kind of gothy, kind of pastoral folklore that I used to love in British and Irish films.
Last act of Kill List.
Yeah, Kill List definitely had that as well.
Which is the greatest ending ever. If you haven't seen Kill List, run out and see Kill List.
That's on my 10 scariest films of all time
I love
list.
that film.
So
I disagree with them both.
Really?
Kill List, yeah.
I love Kill List.
But yeah, so I really liked that one. And then I can't say I enjoyed it, but I spent the entire segment with my mouth hanging open just because somebody had the fucking balls to do it, the Easter segment. I can't even say I enjoyed that, but
no, there's cool moments of that, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was by the guy who did the what's the ghost in the house movie with Casper Van Dien eating ice cream?
Oh, The Pact, yeah.
As soon as I say Casper Van Dien eating ice cream, everyone's like, oh, The Pact.
We know that. We love that, yeah.
No, I spent the entire Easter segment just repulsed and not really sure what's going on, but I don't know what the hell went on, but somebody had the balls to do it, and that was crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about like the perfect anthology was to remove Kevin Smith, do a cut and add Thanksgiving trailer from Eli Roth, do a cut down 8-minute version of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2.
Christmas.
For Christmas, so take out the Christmas one.
And then Dave Parker's Sweet Tooth.
To replace the Halloween series.
Exactly.
And I believe that is the greatest holidays anthology ever. And I I think we can do this, guys. If you rally around this.
Let's see the fan edit of
send me $1. If everyone sends me $1. But yeah, I think it's, for as far as anthologies, look, there's more good than negative in that one. That's all you can really say for anthology. I still wish anthologies were shorter, the amount of stories being told.
Yeah.
I think that's now become a marketing thing because if you have 3 people doing an anthology, unless it is George Romero, John Carpenter, major names, then you've got these smaller indie directors, and the more that you can get involved, that's another person
social media plugs
who is going to be plugging the film. So it's worth it to get as many people involved as possible.
Definitely think you're right.
So I think that's probably what it is, if we get this person in too, he can tweet.
Yeah.
What else have you guys seen?
So I'm going to go to The Forest just because it's very polarizing.
In this room, no doubt.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, and I have to say, it's not the greatest film I've ever seen. Like, I tweeted, I rather enjoyed it, and that's exactly what I mean. I rather enjoyed it. It is not the greatest film. It's heavily flawed. And I do have to say that the first half, what I like her arriving in Japan until the moment she enters the forest, I was like, man, this is just dull drudgery.
Didn't the guy who directed Do House That Time Built that you really liked?
Yeah.
That? You know what? All I could think watching it after when I saw his name was, is this his movie or is this
that his?
Wait, I thought maybe it's a producer. I saw her at the House That Time Built. I don't know. All I was thinking is I can't believe.
Oh, House is October Built, which I do not like. The House at the End of Time is completely
that's what
different,
I thought he did. I was
and
like,
that's the one I like. No, I didn't enjoy House's October Built that much.
Well, watching this, I wondered if this is the director's film or if this was the editor's film. It felt so heavily edited.
I agree. The jump scares, the jump scares. Well, I'll say. The forest, the actual, once they got to the forest and were in the forest, I thought it was great. Like, well, I won't say great. The jump scares had some editing issues.
It definitely had real potential in there because there's a really creepy hanging mask that the guy wears, and the ghosts themselves are really creepy. And I think the mythology of the forest was enough for a whole movie. You didn't need, like, say, the first 40 minutes, which is kind of I don't know, clunky setup.
Clunky of her getting to Japan and then trying to find her sister.
And one of the worst twin acting
acting
scenes I've ever seen. You know, with Jeremy Irons and Didringer, how they had to kind of split the frame to pull this off. They kind of do it like that. It looked actually very lo-fi the way they pulled it off, but it was just so.
But she had black hair, Elric. So that whole opening,
and I know she can act because she's good in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
but in this movie, no.
It was clunky at the beginning, but as soon as they got to the forest, and the whole idea of the forest is that you go there to kill yourself, and it's apparently a real forest. We have a great article on it on Blumhouse.com. And in this, she gets there and she's looking for her sister, who they're worried killed herself. But you soon realize that the forest is kind of psychologically changing her, and it does this. The forest like psychologically affects people who are in it.
Maybe it's a rare situation
when it gets cool.
where a Japanese remake of an American movie would be a better movie. Yeah. We never get that. But like if the guy did The Ring remade that, it'd be an amazing movie.
I would think so.
Because the settings, I found there's too much clunkiness, and there were moments of good tension being built, but then broken by a lot of like really rapid editing that killed it. But what I would say is good teaching lesson in this. Watch the first 10 minutes of this movie and watch the first 10 minutes of Suspiria, and they're exactly the same but completely different, which is the setup of somebody going to an airport, traveling to a foreign city. And in one, it is so heavily like force feeding you, so you have every single element and fact and entrance and exit, so you don't miss a thing. And then Suspiria is completely open-ended and mysterious, and the colors don't make sense, and they are really,
you have no idea what's going on.
It's so interesting. Watch it. Like I was thinking about it. The whole opening was thinking of Suspiria, going, "Oh wow, these are such different ways of telling a story." Because one goes to flashbacks to explain every little detail, but they're essentially the same scene. And I think that would be it would be just an interesting video to see them side by side.
Yeah, the forest felt heavily intervened to me.
I agree.
Like the concept of it seemed spot on, and once they got into the forest, it seemed spot on. But the editing, the fact that my earrings are falling off my head. Oh, sorry, that was one of my earrings just fell out. But the fact that everything had to be so meticulously, like you just heard a studio exec going, we need to make sure that everyone knows they're twins because there's two of them and it's not clear. Can we get an explainer put in there? And then you get 5 minutes worth of dialogue where they explain that they're twins and things like that.
Actually, and I'm all for, I miss the days where you didn't actually have to play both roles. Like you could have a sister who doesn't look exactly like you. You know, there's other actresses who could have played your sister and probably made it a little more convincing.
Yeah.
And the whole twin thing didn't feel warranted.
They were supposed to have like a psychological connection.
I guess, yeah.
But...
Yeah, no, you're right. That is part of the story, but it felt a little cheap.
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't like that they had to change her hair color.
Yeah, it's a slick. It looks pretty, you know. Mm-hmm. So didn't turn me on too hot. Yeah.
What else?
Green room. Does the spinning finger mean speed up?
I mean,
yeah, because we're taking way too long on these. To be honest, I'm gonna be candid about
He's just jealous because he hasn't seen The Forest. That's what's going on.
Not yet.
I'm not going to talk about this one at all. I'm just going to tell you the best movie I've seen this year, horror otherwise, is The Green Room. You should all try to see it in a theater where you'll have a panic attack, and where I literally, and I'm not kidding, I've never said this about a movie in my life, where I chewed my fingernails without realizing I was doing it throughout the film, and when it ended, I was like, oh my god, that's an actual nail biter. The tension's incredible. It's the best leap I've seen by a director from Blue Ruin to Green to the Green Blue Ruin to The Green Room. It reminds me a bit like Adam Wingard going from You're Next to The Guest, but I think an even bigger leap in some ways because it's got a lot more kind of complicated pieces and a lot of characters. It's an absolutely terrific, suspenseful, tense movie, and you will love it. So see it in a theater. You got one? You want to?
No, I got those two.
I got a couple more.
I got Monster Palooza.
Yeah, the only other thing I saw was I picked up the Arrow release of Bride of Re-Animator, which apparently is already sold out and going for like
Weird.
$60 on Amazon. Like it's already being sold by third-party sites. I don't know if it was limited. It doesn't seem like their latest batch of U.S. releases has been. But yeah, apparently Bride of Re-Animator is a tough one to get. However, tip, if you're in LA, or even if you're not in LA, I think you could order on their website. I know Amoeba in Hollywood definitely has them. So it might be a little pricier than you'd expect to pay for it, but it's much cheaper than what people are paying on Amazon for it.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. I mean, I remember it not being... look, nothing compares to the original Re-Animator because it's Re-Animator. It's like it defies. It's so Stuart Gordon and Jeffrey Combs. It was that combination. I wrote an article about it when I watched Bride, saying it's like you'll never forget the first time you saw Re-Animator because it's like you're forever changed after that moment. Whether you think it's funny or terrifying or whatever.
Unless, like me, you see Bride 2 first.
Oh, you saw Bride first.
And that messed my whole thing up.
Really? Because I haven't watched it in a long time. The Blu-ray is fantastic. There's an unrated version of it on there. And it's an interesting movie. I don't like it. Like, they're trying really hard to capture that first movie. But it's Brian Usna. And as a lot of people know from when we talked about it before, he had like a 2-picture deal to do Society first with the guarantee that there would be a Re-Animator sequel. And it's interesting. I think Combs is out of control in it. Like really, really fun. Like he almost kind of, and I don't mean this as a negative way, but when Combs is doing Herbert West, he's kind of overacting a little bit, but that works for that character. I do like that they throw every idea out there, like the fact that Dr. Hill's head comes back with like bat wings on it. It's like some of those weirdest shit that you could ever think of. And like Herbert keeps reanimating just like body parts, so there's like fingers with an eyeball in the middle.
That's right.
Like there's just some weird shit that's happening there.
Well, it's all Screaming Mad George concoctions.
Well, everybody. It was K&B, Screaming Mad George did stuff.
There
was a whole slew of the effects guys on there. Mainly because it came together so fast that Usna is like, shit, what do we do? I wrote an article actually about the many versions that they were kind of batting around when Stewart was maybe thinking of coming back to do it. But the timing was all off, and Usna decided just to direct it himself. So it's an interesting movie. I don't think it's a good movie. And honestly, and this isn't a slight on Usna, but I just don't think he's as strong a director, or yet at that point early in his career. He's a great producer. I don't think he was as strong a director.
But are you going to say there's some point where he becomes a great director? Because he's a fun filmmaker.
He's fun.
No, he's a fun filmmaker, but
he knows he's not a great director.
Even he said that this weekend. I'll say it at Monster Palooza.
Well, then he's not as great as Stewart.
He says, some of his films have flaws, but they're still good.
Yeah, he owns up to that, but the point being is like there was one scene in Bride of that I remember where like a cop comes over to their house to where Bruce Abbott, Dan Kane, and Herbert live, and his little finger eye thing is kind of like running around the couch. And I just kept thinking to myself, if this was Stewart directing this scene, it would be a suspenseful, fun kind of thing. But in Bride of Re-Animator, it kind of falls flat, like the way it's put together, because you're just like, oh, okay, that should have been a lot more funny or exciting, whatever. And that's because Stuart Gordon is comes from the school of Hitchcock. He loves that kind of. He would have tried to figure out a way to make it suspenseful. Whereas Usna, I feel like, is like, all right, we got to shoot this and get on to the next thing. So let's just get it done.
Yeah, I also just really missed, even when I was young, when I finally saw 1 and then kind of went back to 2, I just missed that Crampton. Like I keep thinking, like imagine if Barbara Crampton had been in the second and she had gone to play the bride.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the cult factor of it would just be that much higher.
Yeah.
And I don't know the story behind, like if she just wasn't available back then, or if she had left. I know she left acting.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of those and the fact that Stewart wasn't doing it. And I think she said on her show she just didn't feel comfortable coming back to it at that point in her life and career. I like Kathleen Kinmont. She was in Halloween 4. I thought she did a
good performance. Yeah, it's fun.
I mean, she's really tall, and that helps when she's full on bride by the end of the movie. And honestly, the person that I thought I wrote a respect for him on our site was Bruce Abbott as Dan Kane. Like he's, everyone thinks of Herbert West when they think of these movies, but he's really the heart and soul of it. Like he's doing it because he has compassion for people and wants to save them. So
he's always the guy I thought if he had been in Your Next with her, it would have been a
that would have been
that would have been the home run. Like because he looks just like the guy they cast.
I know,
and he's just would have been so fun to see them back together as a couple. And I wonder if they tried. I know they tried to get Jeff Combs for that role, but it would have been better with
Bruce Abbott for sure,
because he's so normal. He just seems like I haven't seen him in anything else besides those movies myself.
He's He's done quite a couple. I mean, I interviewed him for the Bad Dreams special features.
That's right, yeah.
He did a lot of stuff around that time period, and I think he still acts a little bit.
Huh.
But yeah. So yeah, that's what I saw. What else you got, Elric?
I watched one of the films from the Arrow Films American Horror Project, which cost a mighty hefty $60-odd. It's looking at regional horror films. This one's from Philadelphia. The one most people are kind of raving about is Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, and it's a film that was like basically had zero presence in the world until this rediscovery and put on Blu-ray. A couple people we know from Facebook actually said it was one of their favorite discoveries of the year.
Really?
I would
it's
not be amongst them.
Malatesta's Blood?
Yes, Malatesta's Carnival of Blood.
Thank you.
I found it to be like all the parts of Messiah of Evil, the couple scenes that are clunky and don't work. This is that for an entire 2 hour. I really just did nothing for me at all, besides being a curiosity of time. It's a bit of Manos, Hands of Fate, a little bit of Messiah of Evil, and a couple other things from that period. But it made sense to me why this guy made one film. He had a carnival. They rented a carnival and made a crazy little movie. Has some trippy shots, but it never, for me personally, just didn't work. I can see why some people are interested in it, but for the $60 price tag,
yeah, those American Horror Project things are kind of weird for me, because I know when one of them came out, we had one at trivia, and people were like fighting over it. And the movie that was on it that everybody was like, "Oh, I have to see that," was Witch That Came from the Sea.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see that one.
The exciting part about Witch That Came from the Sea is the old box cover.
Yeah.
Because it's this very kind of heavy metal, like gothic woman holding a spear and head, and it's this awesome. The actual movie, it's a rape revenge film, but it's a very kind of internalized rape revenge film.
Dean Kundey shot it, I think.
It looks great, but it's a very slow burn rape revenge film, which is the weirdest thing to say. It's pretty intense. It made it to the Video Nasties list, but when I see people fighting over the box set and like raving about Witch Who Came from the Sea, I'm kind of like,
no, it tells you a lot about Arrow's ability to package. Like they've packaged something and it's got a high price tag, and it's kind of like the Mondo situations. But I don't think in this case that it's going to be worth it. Now, we'll see what the others are like. The other one's called Premonition, another lesser-known film. So we'll see. This one wasn't for me, and I'll check out the others. And the only other thing I saw was a documentary I'd heard about over the last couple of years called Why Horror, a Canadian documentary. It has all the familiar Canadian faces like Chris Alexander and the Shoskas twins. I would say it's a fun introduction if you know very little about horror. I think if you didn't know much at all and you're curious, it's kind of like what our show has done. In fact, it's kind of fitting that I'd talk about it on this episode. It's very much almost like what we, from the very start, we were kind of like, hey, why are we into this? And analyzing on that level, and at a certain point, it becomes intangible and you can't really get to the heart of that. I think my problem with the film is I love a documentary with a personal slant. I found the guy whose personal slant, it was not very interesting to me, and so I wasn't very interested in the movie as a result, where even when I would have interviews with Romero or someone, I was like, yeah, okay, I know that. But it didn't have the insight that a great horror documentary like A Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue, or one of those ones that's like analyzing a specific thing about horror. Yeah. So it's a little general, but I do think if you were just listening to this and you're like just getting into horror, awesome, because there's a lot of cool clips, a lot of cool stuff. But for me, it wasn't. And it's on Showtime right now. So if you have Showtime, that's how you can find this film. And that's what I've been watching.
Cool. All right, why don't we talk a little bit about some of our favorite shows here on the good old Killer POV. I think now's a good time to do a shout out to Patrick Bromley, one of the hosts of F This Movie podcast, because he's written several articles about us in the past, and it's usually kind of an introductory, hey, here's 10 episodes of Killer POV you should check out. And what's fun about that to me is, like, obviously we do the show, we don't really have any context, but hearing somebody else tell us what 10 episodes they thought that they think you should start off with, and
it's
I'm like,
hilarious.
Oh, really, that one? Okay, but I didn't see that. So I know when people ask me about the show, I have a couple that I kind of pull out as, you should check out this one first, because that's one I think is a lot of fun and kind of sums up what we do.
And our takes are all different, because like you, especially when you're at FearNet, you would always re-listen to the show on your commute and give notes or whatever. Whereas I've never listened to an episode.
I've never listened to an episode. When I do, I'm like, stop doing that thing with your voice, Becca. Like, I get annoyed hearing myself.
But it means that we're judging. Like, I know for me, I know what feels good in the room, and sometimes you really feel like a connection to, say, a guest or a topic, and I love that feeling. Like, that's the reason we keep doing this. I think is sometimes you just have that. I felt like we had that just a couple weeks ago with Karen Kasuma.
Oh yeah,
so
that was great.
I felt like you're getting some really interesting stuff. But I don't know if that translates. It's just like acting. An actor does a scene. They don't really know if it was good or bad. They're totally out of. They're not in there. They're not an audience.
Well, I think that in today's modern society, because of social media, I think that's that's the amazing thing, is how we've been able to get feedback directly from people and kind of continue the conversation off air. So many people from different parts of the world. I guess let's mention Dennis Satherton, who is very vocal on our Twitter pages, extra fan and all. Just a lot of people. I mean, hearing from that guy from Australia that recently reached out to us. I was telling you guys, Singapore. We have a new listener from Singapore. I think that it's amazing to me how far the show has.
Norway.
reached.
We have those Norway fans.
Norway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It's all corners of the globe.
And
no
we've met
Haitians.
some of them. Like,
Don't
even,
worry, we're appreciative of you, Miss Kansas.
Yeah.
We do love Kansas.
No, but that was like even just walking around Texas or Texas Frightmare or Monsterpalooza this weekend and having people come up and be like, "Holy shit, it's Killer POV! Can I get a picture with you three?" Is amazing.
Yeah, that person was coked out of their brain.
Just one.
Well, I know. I love the Australian girl, Meg.
Yeah, Meg Bigsy.
Yeah. Because you walked up, she'd never met you before. You're like, oh, you're the Aussie.
Yeah.
And she like made her day that you knew exactly.
I totally
who she
recognized
was,
her,
and immediately started giving her shit for being Australian.
I mean, social media in general is just bizarre because you really do start to, if you follow them and they like enough of your things, you start to feel like you know these people.
Oh God, yeah. There are fans that we have met through Killer POV that I now talk to all the time.
You mean listeners, not fans?
Thank you,
Friends.
listeners.
None of us have fans.
They are
listeners.
friends now, so definitely.
So I don't know. I mean, for me, I can just list off a couple of quick episodes. Like again, when people ask me which ones to start with,
If they asked you one, what would you do? Just one. The first one. What comes to your head?
Savage Steve Holland.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting.
It's my favorite episode we've ever done because I know he's not a horror guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have obviously we have an affinity for him
Yeah,
because
he rules.
He's
of
just
the
an
movies he
awesome
made,
guy.
Better Off Dead. But I think that's that's a great look at here, because if you listen, the subject was Thrill of the Hunt, which for us was finding horror movies.
Yeah, that's why we do it.
And getting to hear from a filmmaker that's not necessarily in the genre. That episode captures that. And in fact, he hit the nail on the head. I know we talk about what is it that we're looking for when we look for horrors, and Savage was like, I just want to see something that I could never have imagined before. Like the first time you see Nightmare on Elm Street, you can't imagine a guy with arms just extending and going across the scratching against the wall or whatever. So I don't know. I just think there's a fun tone to it. I mean, literally in the first 2 seconds, you don't even let Becca introduce herself because you're like,
That's awesome.
You're drinking beers and saying like, oh, if he told me he's a small child in New Zealand, I'd be drinking Savage Steve Holland beers. And I was like, come on, you gave away the guest. You didn't introduce Becca.
Awesome.
And do you know how excited I was? Steve at the end of the show, because he knew, I loved One Crazy Summer and Better Off Dead, but what I was most excited to meet him for was Eek the Cat. And the next week, he sent me an actual still from the Eek the Cat cartoon, like one of the actual, I don't know what you call it, animated cell.
Yeah.
From the Eek the Cat Eek-pocalypse, which is a parody of Apocalypse Now. It's hilarious, and if you ever show Apocalypse Now to a class, you have to follow it up with this because it is so genius. And you can tell it's written by Savage Steve Holland, even though that it's intended for like 10-year-olds.
That's
because
cool,
it's
Becca.
nothing.
You sent me John Cusack's actual head. Actual fucking head.
You listen to that episode to know his feelings.
That cell
you'll understand that if
is
you
still
listen to
hanging
it.
in my kitchen. So
Not to rub it
it's
in,
awesome.
but I have an animated still from the opening of Better Off Dead. I remember that's
I also have a $2 bill signed by him.
You do have a $2
you do have a
bill.
$2
So he says my $2, I'll be like, this $2?
Just here it is.
Here it is. If I ever meet that kid, I should just give it to him.
Yeah.
Just walk up to him and go, here it is, man. Lay off.
Lay off the guy. So no, I think that's a good.
Well, that was one of the most mind-blowing and being like, this is so bizarre that this was happening, and I loved that about it.
But that's what I loved about it. That's what our show can do. Is it could get somebody you wouldn't expect and get us all to talk about what we love the genre.
Who are you the most? And this might be the same answer, but personally, was there one you're personally excited because you're like, oh my god, so and so is gonna be on?
Yeah, you know what? What's been fun is we've done pretty much since the beginning birthday episodes where when it's one of our birthdays, we kind of try to pick the topic or guest or whatever. I was really excited for Steve Rebello for my birthday because we got to do a really lengthy chat on Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, I'd met him before. I asked him to come on the show, and he politely declined on various occasions. And then finally, I think it was me saying, "Oh, this is my birthday episode, man." He's like, "Well, how can I say no to you on your birthday?"
Aww.
So he came in, and we talked about Psycho, but I didn't hear a lot of those Hitchcock stories.
Yeah, that's really.
So
nice.
I thought that was a really interesting, like that went beyond the horror genre. Just hearing about an amazing filmmaker. So that one, I was excited about having him on.
Yeah, I was excited about Sandy Carpenter because Sandy and I, we have done so many panels together. Because if people are like, okay, well, let's get a panel together of 10 women in horror, Sandy and I always end up on there. So we have been at like 4 different, more than that actually, conventions doing these women in horror panels, but I've never actually just sat and talked to her. And it was amazing just to sit down and talk to her and just, find out what's going on or how she got involved in some of the industry.
Well, I mean, you look at that list.
Yeah,
you
all
look
her
at that IMDb.
her script supervisor work. You're like, whoa! You started with every major
director,
and she was on the Blumhouse.com panel this weekend at Monsterpalooza, and she killed it again. I love her on panels, but
she's so great. She was a great. I think that's one of my favorite episodes for sure. Is when Sandy was on.
Definitely the one I was looking forward to most was Jim Warnowski, but.
Cricket.
Anyway, we'll go back to that later. If you had just one, Becca, if you just were telling somebody to listen to one that you think would kind of sum up what we do, what do you think it'd be?
This is going to be a weird one. Richard Stanley.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Richard Stanley was one of my favorite episodes just because it was so geeky and so niche and so just very meticulous, and that's for me what I love about the show. Like, it's one thing that we can sit here and all go like, yeah, Evil Dead 2's great. Yeah, we all agree on that. But it's another thing that we can pick elements of these films apart with just such detail orientation and all understand and speak the same language. And even though that Richard lives on a mountain in France now and, it doesn't come out too often, being able to talk to him about the niche inner workings of his films was amazing for me.
Yeah, you hit on it. I think, and Elric, maybe if you want to elaborate on this, but unlikely guests. Like sometimes I'd pitch a guest to you guys, or it's like, who would have thought? Like Tom McLaughlin, I love Jason Lives, but his career before that and everything he's done, like I love surprising our listeners.
It's counterintuitive because for interviews you're meant to overly prepare, and sometimes you do, but like had I read the book before I interviewed him, it wouldn't have been that exciting an interview. But there was actual revelations as you talk to someone as a really fun way to interact with someone. Like as long as you know the basics about where they come from,
right?
I feel like the art of the interview, whatever that is it can be really rewarding when you don't know everything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're trying to hit beats. You're always trying to hit the key points of their career, which isn't that interesting.
Yeah,
and I did that on my old shows.
I really liked talking to Richard Stanley because he has so much weird shit going on, and just talking to him, I'm like, wait a sec, you live on a mountain. Wait, what's this about witchcraft? Hold on, where's the voodoo come in? And it was just things that I never knew. Like I'd seen Dust Devil and Hardware, of course, and I'd seen the doc on all the stuff that went on Island of Dr. Moreau. But going past that as a person, I was just so interested in everything he had going on, and there was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, the ones that, and I'll throw 2 because we're all going to talk about these, but the 2, and I can't decide which one because they're kind of the same, and you'll know exactly where I'm going.
I know where you're going.
They're just so interesting, where I was completely in what we're hearing, which is Bob Murawski, which is Sam Raimi's editor, but far more than that, Grindhouse releasing, and Bill Lustig. 2 different episodes, quite a few episodes apart, I believe.
Bill was Bill was on number 50, which is great.
And the stories of New York and Grindhouse theaters and just where he comes from and just his personality were so freaking good.
Oh, yeah.
And then when we had Bob on, who was somebody we all wanted on, I felt like it was the same thing, but they kind of have the similar careers in some ways.
And they intersect a lot, which was kind of cool because we'd hear a story from Bob's perspective or Bill's perspective, and then hear it from Bob's and.
Well, I feel like Bob was on much later. I think he was episode 93, and I feel like a lot of people wouldn't. That's the fun about where we live in Los Angeles, where we bump into a lot of people. Yeah. You say Bob Murawski, people might know the name, but they don't realize like just how many stories, how cool he is, and it's been a cool revelation to bring people on that you wouldn't expect to have these great stories, and then realize, oh my God, what a great guest that was.
Yeah, I mean,
one I want to throw out. It's so odd. And this came courtesy of Scott Reynolds, who was a guest on our show once, but he recommended his good friend Dan Budnick, who was one of the writers on the Bleeding Skull.
Yeah.
And the reason I like that because his specialty was like direct to VHS horror, which
like SOV horror.
To this day, I still haven't seen a lot of them, but that was the one episode where I think all 3 of us people comment how our collective knowledge blows them away. But I don't think I knew a single title that Dan mentioned when he was on.
The 2 episodes that are alike on that front, I felt that one, and the other one I wrote down because it's kind of similar was the United States of Horror episode with the Cinefamily Burger.
Yeah.
Great
simply
episode.
Because they were doing regional horror, all 50 states, and there was a lot of movies in there that I wasn't familiar with, and I think there is some overlap between them and Dan's episode. Both really fun ones if you're jumping in and looking for movies to look at. In the same boat as Murawski and Lustig, I think my favorite of the last 50-odd episodes, of the last 30 episodes, I just thought I didn't have a clue it would be this good. And the most I've ever been in an interview where you're just totally in it was Adam Simon.
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
that,
Oh, my God.
yeah.
who's
The
the
witch
Salem,
one.
yeah, he's the Salem showrunner of the show, but he did
that documentary,
Brain Dead, the
American.
film, and the documentary. And there's just something about having just a great conversation with someone.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what it felt like. We were just, and he just knew so much about horror too. He's fascinating guest. You know, it was really
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I always really like Charles Band's episode too.
That was a good one.
Charles, you always get kind of the businessman, or I'll call it the marketeer. You see the Charles at the show, and the Charles who's trying to sell you his evil bong dolls and things like that. And it was really awesome.
He was pretty candid on
Yeah,
this.
he was. He was candid. He was relaxed. He was willing to sit down and tell us about how the industry progressed and what happened to his, I am going to call it an empire that he had in the 80s, and what happened to it and where it went and where he is now, and how he's trying to reclaim it with some online stuff. And we still saw the marketer, but you saw a lot of behind the scenes too, and I liked that element.
Yeah, just him explaining how he kind of conquered the VHS business was amazing and fascinating. Like the whole idea of making the covers and then shipping them directly to the distribution houses that actually made the cassettes, like the way that he kind of saved money and made a great business out of that. I don't know if he'd ever talked about that before.
Yeah.
So.
And I got to say that some of my favorite episodes are the ones where we talk to our friends who we talk to every day, but we talk to them in a completely different way. The example that I'll use is Neil Marshall. We see
Love Neil
all the time. Like, I saw him at Monsterpalooza this weekend. But when we see a lot of these people, they're our friends. So we talk about, like, what you're doing on weekends, or what your kids are doing in school, or what your dog's doing, or what you ate for lunch. We don't talk as niche about their work. And it was fascinating to be able to sit down with Neil, because you don't do it in social situations here,
right.
But to sit down and go, okay, tell me everything about that Game of Thrones set. I want to know everything. I want to know how you shot it. I want to know how the 360 worked, what the actual set looked like. And it was things that I would never do when I just see him.
Because you can actually, in that setting, you can learn something from somewhere. Whereas if in passing, that would be a little weird. I felt that way about one of the most instructive ones, which I thought was a very similar kind of thing, was Travis Stevens' producing one. I felt like there's so much in that that you can learn and take away from, even whether you knew him or not. It was just very informative, interesting episode, which is always fun. And then what about like ones that we're talking mostly about guests right now, but what about topics? So sometimes they had great guests, but what about topics that you think we got lost in, just had a ball talking about?
I loved Steven Scarlatta in that regard, because the Sharksploitation, that was right in my wheelhouse, and I could have spent hours talking about that.
And also, like, hearing Steve's got a savant mind for unmade movies. So, like, we're talking shark movies on one end, and then he's blowing our minds about E.T. 2, which sounded like the most terrifying sequel. It sounded pretty horrific in terms of what it would have been. He was great. You know what? I think just for the sake of fun, the sex and horror episode was pretty fun.
Oh, that was a great discussion.
I remember before I tried to come up with a bunch of different, like, not just like, oh, that's a sexy scene or whatever, but like different versions of it, like which character would you bring home to mom, like that sort of thing. And of course Becca picked Dave Duchovny from X-Files, which makes sense. I picked Jocelyn Donahue from House of the Devil. I don't remember who you picked.
I picked Shelley Duvall.
That's my pick.
No, you picked that redhead from American Horror Story.
Oh yeah,
you did,
and
right?
I got to meet her at Monsterpalooza.
Oh, wow.
But she had brown hair, and you're like, oh,
not the same.
You're not dressed like a maid all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That was the role.
That's good. I always recommend the first. AJ Bowen, who's a friend of ours, has been on several times, but I always recommend his first appearance, which was episode 23, favorite genre performances, because that's all of us really. I think that really defines a horror fan, is looking at a certain aspect of film and really not necessarily defending it, but really like pointing out, like, this is why we love this, is because this person did such great work in that part of the movie. So.
And it tends to be the performance movies that you watch over and over again, not just great movies. Like, you watched Evil Dead 2 a million times because of what Bruce does in that. You watch Re-Animator a million times because of the comics. So I do think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I also thought the horror anthology episode was a good one. In terms of topic, like, we just covered it felt like we covered every possible segment from anthologies.
And Ryan
pretty exhausting.
Ryan Spindell.
Yeah, they were both great.
Yeah, that was a fun one. And one I was thinking that I was scanning back through them, that I remember really liking, and it's funny, I think it was more revealing about us as horror fans than any other episode we did, and it's the episode the three of us did on our favorite non-horror films. Because if you look at our favorite non-horror films, they completely reflect what we also like in horror.
It's true.
And the differences between the three of us, which I thought was pretty interesting. So it makes for kind of an interesting episode. I'm tempted to almost listen to that one again.
I remember somebody who was like, great, now you're not talking about horror this week.
Somebody.
Of course, there's always one person angry about every decision
It
we
doesn't
make.
matter. Somebody's going to be
But that was the point of it. I thought it would be interesting to hear what we, it informs our horror taste if you know what we like outside of that.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one, a good defining one.
Yeah.
Anytime David Scout came on, who is unofficially still our fourth host, I'd like to say.
A lexicon of knowledge. I love talking to him. And
our-
Darren Scott in that regard, too, where there's
great.
like, I could just talk for hours with Darren.
I think the one we were all most excited about at the time, and because there was a lot of build-up because he wasn't from here, but I think the Larry Fessenden was the longest we had been looking forward to someone coming on, and then when it all came together, and him and Glenn McQuaid came on.
And it was like a Halloween episode.
It was Halloween. They had just done an event at Jump Cut with Habit.
We had a lot of beer.
There was a lot of beer. It was just a really fun. I think that and Jeremy Gardner are the two episodes that had the kind of that elevated sense of excitement because they're not from LA.
Right.
And you're not going to see them here again. And Jeremy's was a lot of fun.
We got
too.
Larry to read the back of my Halloween record.
Yeah.
That's right.
How cool was that? Closing that episode out that way. God, we could go on and on. There's so many.
A couple things. Well, do you remember what was the weirdest moment or most awkward moment? Because we don't really talk about it behind the scene. I mean, sometimes we're not going to. Well, a guest is here, but now
I guess. Well, screw it. It's the last
remember
episode.
Last episode.
What Rocky said in Rocky 5. Sue what?
Okay, so Jim Wynorski, the majority of it. So Jim Wynorski, I mean, like on air, he asked, he hinted twice that I needed to take my boobs out. Twice during the actual episode, but when he arrived, the very first thing that he said to me as he walked in the door was something like, take them out and let them breathe a little. It was like very...
I'm sure he was talking to you because he did come in with a model.
He may have been talking to that girl, but we were standing beside and he looks at us and he goes, oh, come on, take them out and let them breathe a little. And she looks at me because I could tell that she was like used to it and she could tell I wasn't.
Papa Top. You did say,
and I was like, what the fuck?
What did you expect from him?
Hey, you're a mother. You know how it goes. Papa Top.
And part of me was like, okay, it's Wynorski, it's fine. And, I still love some of his movies. And it's him, and that's his bag. But it was definitely like my moment on the show.
No, but let's tell them why it's awkward. It was awkward for this reason. I'm not sure if we talked about it on the air, but my friend who I went to film school with been his like AD forever. And they come on the show, and we arrive at Geeknation, and Jim, who I've only ever seen in a Hawaiian shirt, is dressed to the nines like they're going to the Oscars. He brings in a girl who is dressed in like a babylicious, tight-fitted, see-through
wearing like
dress.
A lingerie thing.
And even my friend is dressed up, and I just look at my friend and I go, did you think this was still Inside Horror, a video show? And he looked at me and goes, oh, it's not? And then he looked at Jim, and Jim they kind of conferred, and I was like, oh, shit. They totally thought they were coming on a video show, and here we're going in to do a dingy audio in a little booth. And I could tell that from that moment there was a weirdness and kind of a bizarre quality to the whole thing that I thought was just tremendous.
Yeah.
Well, you did.
I thought it was funny. I actually thought the best story of the entire show, flat out, the best story ever told on air on Killer POV was his story about recutting Screamers. I really thought that was one of the best movie stories I've heard.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great one. So even if you just listen to that part, it's worth all the pain Rob had to suffer.
Yeah, I was not.
That one. He was not happy.
That was not a Rob episode.
A fan of. Well, look, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the people that come in through our door.
Yeah, it's not about that.
Until they disrespect me.
Yeah.
And from the moment he walked in, he was really condescending about us and our show. And that's what I was like, dude, chopping well's fine and all, but you're our guest. So,
his girl was nice.
Yeah, I guess.
She was pleasant.
So yeah, I'm not a fan of that episode. I wasn't a fan when you really early on you brought on the Birdemic 2 producer, and I was pretty silent in that episode.
You had
never even seen Birdemic, right?
Yeah.
No, I tried, and I was like, I don't want to talk. Like he was talking about it, like it was like, oh, I have to help this guy see his vision. I'm like, you're full of shit. You just want to make money off this.
Yeah, that one wasn't one of our. I feel like the first few episodes in general wasn't because of the guest. It was just I also feel some of the
timing. But like Mike was on our third. Mike Mendez was on our third episode.
He's always a great guest. I actually really like the
Roy Frumkis.
Was an interesting one.
Was great.
Yeah, I sometimes wish we could go more in depth on people who've just made that one movie, that one cult film, but it is hard to justify. But you never know what the future would hold. But that was a fun one.
Did you have an awkward moment, Elric?
I mean, I had
every time you took your pants off, pretty much.
I had moments where I was less in, like where you're like, what exactly is going on?
Who surprised you the most? Did you have somebody that's like, you were like, oh, I don't know about this guest, and then they came in totally surprised, like you were in?
I mean, Adam Simon, like I said, wasn't that I didn't think he'd be great, but that one was particularly great.
Right.
That's a good question. Let me think. Did you have anyone like that? Who you?
Because most of the time, I mean, it's not a secret. I mean, we all throw names out there, but I usually handled the booking for the most part, just because I was always on top of like, oh, we should get this, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes, not that you guys would be, I don't want to use the word define, but you'd be like, oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and kind of like go along with it.
Sometimes we go along with it.
But then that guest would be awesome. And I was like, I told you, I bumped into this person. They were awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't think of any off the top. I'm sure there are, though. Like, I'm sure there's a few. Well, Steve Rebello was one of those who I had nothing to kind of...
I knew nothing and just thought he was like geeky scholar about Hitchcock. And that was actually one of the more fascinating episodes.
That was
a
really
good one.
episode. I'm trying to think. Did you have any of those where you were just, even somebody you had booked?
Not really. I mean, almost everybody we talked to I thought was great. You know what? I think some of the funnest episodes, and I wish we had done more of these with other companies. Anytime Scream Factory was on, or Nick Redmond from Twilight Time, it's just fascinating to get that inside look on that side of the business, like the home video market and how it's evolved so much over the years. And again, it seems like a lot of our listeners were really into those episodes too. So, interviewing people that are slightly outside the box.
If you could have, if there one person who we didn't get on the show, who if you could have moved heavens and earth to have that person in that booth with us, did we have that person?
I wanted the two people who did Messiah of Evil.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
No,
that'd be cool.
It would be very cool.
Wouldn't probably be impossible either.
No, I always wanted the Code Red guys.
That would have been. Well, Code Red would have been a crazy show.
Yeah, a crazy show. That's why, because there's
that.
so much mystery built around those two guys.
Right.
I really wanted to know the backstory there. So.
Well, you want my realistic and unrealistic one? My unrealistic one is obviously somebody like Quentin Tarantino, because I'd love to hear him just talk horror for 2 hours.
I still think he'd be the best guest of all time for a horror show.
To just talk about
horror,
and realistic, I wish we had gotten Jeff Burr on, because I've known Jeff for years.
Right.
Great guy, lot of great stories. And we've talked about all his films pretty much throughout the duration of the show. He's just not local. It would have been, if timing worked out, I would have loved to have him on. I think people would have appreciated him.
Yeah,
I think, one I think it always feels inevitable would be Larry Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
On a story, because we had a lot to do with him towards the end of Jump Cut. We had quite a few, we had 2 of those script kind of consultation, whatever that, I don't even know what those things were called. But they were super fun, but he was somebody who was wanting us to do the show remotely, to where he was... I don't know. I'd kind of be interested to talk to Ken Wiederhorn.
Okay.
Nice.
Just going to throw it out.
You always wanted Fred Decker.
Fred Decker is actually, you're right. Fred Decker
You always
is somebody,
mention
I don't know, I just think he's so, the 2 movies that we always think about are just so fun. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, wait, we're all on drugs here. We all collectively, Coscarelli.
We tried him so many times.
Yeah, there's reasons, but Coscarelli, you know, one day those things will happen.
One day it'll happen.
You know, Coscarelli would be an amazing guest.
Well, we technically did get to host a Q&A with him as Killer POV in Texas, so that was cool. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. But I would love to have him. I would have loved to have had him on a guest.
It's, I know everyone has their schedule in their life, and that's the thing that some of you don't ever realize. Like when we're booking people, a lot of the times it's like people have to push you off until they have press for something, or they're working.
Their agents won't let them talk to you until they're specifically promoting something.
It's true. There's a lot of people
unless we get around them, which is what I always try to do.
Well, I mean that's
and I don't know succeed, but No, but we've had really good luck and been fortunate with the people that have come on, and I think I think it's been a really good thing.
Favorite moment in the entire show for me, it's not even close, to be honest. My favorite moment is the drunken debates.
Hell yeah!
Because for a couple reasons. A, it was with close friends, and we all completely cut loose. So even if the audio and everything's terrible to listen to, in terms of being in a show, but also we had just done a photo shoot before it, and so it was after. Yeah, so you see the result of us drinking for a bunch of time, doing a really fun show with friends. That's like 3+ hours, and then we do the photo, the shoot where we needed all these. You'll see these Killer POV photos where we're all holding. And there's something about that. Of all the moments, if I remember one moment from doing Killer POV, I definitely think that's a very crystallized moment in my mind. Doing that, even if a lot of other stuff you forget over time, you'll forget 90% of everything you do. But the little moments like that, that's strong. With me, and seeing how drunk Dave Parker was it's a beautiful thing, Dave. Beautiful thing.
So bad.
So
beautiful.
It's amazing.
And somebody trying to defend Phantoms. I don't even remember who it was.
That would be me.
Oh God.
The first half. Only the first half.
Or Freddy's
God, I didn't marry you. Phantoms. Dave, you're the balm in Phantoms. But did you guys have any other memories besides that one, which you were just particularly think were strong? Like I would assume Savage Steve was part of that for you.
Yeah, because I've had those conversations with him off record, so I just knew he would be a fun guest, and it'd be fun to bring somebody like him on. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, there's so many. Again, we have so many people that have been friends with us. Like getting somebody like Rodman Flender on, who a lot of people they know his movies, but they don't know him very well. And I'd known him socially, and I was like, he's gonna be a great guest. And not only was he a great guest, but I love that he was already a listener of the show and referenced a lot of that's fun too. When we
Yeah.
Well, and Craig is excellent too. Craig Perry. It was that same thing. Rodman and Craig remind me similar, where it's like somebody who also knows what we're talking about because they've listened, but they both knew so much about the industry,
right?
That I would not have known they would have known.
Yeah, anybody that had either Roger Corman or Charles Band stories usually was a solid episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, you slice it.
And all these people have ended up becoming really good friends of ours, which I love as well, where it's like, they're no longer just a guest on the show. Like, we've built a family here of people that we know and now interact regularly with.
And you asked me about a surprise one. I'll throw in one more, guys. It's a totally random small episode we did, but I really enjoyed it, and that was the Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 director.
Oh, Lee Harry.
That was a really cool one because he did he hasn't done a lot of other stuff, but just hearing his side of something like that is so interesting.
Yeah.
And that's what I guess I mean by sometimes it is really cool to talk to people who maybe made one movie. I think if I had my own weirdo podcast, if I could do anything, it'd be only people who made one movie.
Right.
You only made one movie. Let's just talk about that movie for an hour.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people like that, especially back then, where you just got all your money together to make your Manos Hands of Fate, and that's it.
I want to talk to this Soul Survivor guy now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. They're probably still out there. So, but yeah, look, you can't replace it. 3 years of people listening. We would have ended the show so much earlier had people not been listening and commenting and telling us what they meant, because it takes a lot of energy to get together every week and do all these things.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we all have lives and families and stuff like that. It's not always easy to coordinate every week, but we made it work to the best of our ability. And now we can take a little break.
Yeah.
But
little.
Little, very little.
Yeah. And we hope look, this is just the closing of this chapter, Killer POV on Geeknation. We hope that you'll continue to follow us, all three of us, on our personal Twitter pages, Facebook, whatever, and keep up with what we're up to. Because again, we didn't know each other when we started, but now we're family.
Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say that we'll continue to try to do stuff together no matter what.
Yeah.
One way or another.
And do us a favor and go, like Geeknation as a page, and actually you just thank them for the show. Not us, but thank them, because they're the ones who have had to put up with us for 3 years.
Yes.
And post it, and just thank them or tell them something, and maybe check out one of their other shows, because they are doing great work. So.
Yeah, they've got a lot of great stuff going on there. And again, if you loved what we did with Killer POV, go on the iTunes page, rate and review it. Don't give us a negative review because it's the last episode, though.
Yeah, don't say they're quitting or anything like that.
Celebrate.
Because we are not quitting. This is the end of a chapter.
Yeah, please celebrate it. That's what we ask you.
This is the end, just like the Jason movie. The final chapter was the end of the Jason saga.
Listen, there's a reason we're titling these episodes this. Yeah, exactly.
What happened after Jason Goes to Hell anyway? What happened after that one?
He went to space. So we'll see you in space, folks.
Oh, yes.
There's going to be liquid nitrogen
Oh, my God. Killer POV X goes to space. This is going to be the coolest thing ever.
Crazy.
Oh, cool. So we're going to have Cronenberg at the start or something.
All right.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for Killer POV. Thank you again, Geeknation.
And see you next time.
We'll see you on the other side.